Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I am Harshita Singhal. I am technical consultant here at DSCI. I would like to extend my warm welcome to all of you for the third day of our NASCOM DSCI Annual Information Security Summit. I would really like to thank you all for joining this session on 2020 inflection point of accelerating ICS vulnerability. Now, I would like to welcome our panelists for this session. So, I would like to welcome Mr. Atanu Nyogi, Head Cybersecurity L&T Technology. Welcome, Mr. Atanu.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Ashita.
yeah. So, he will be the moderator of this session as well. So, next panelist is Ms. Shavna Sanuddin. She is President in Women in Cybersecurity India. Welcome, Ms. Shavna.
Yeah.
Hello. Next, we have Mr. Prakash Bodla. He is MD and VP Engineering and Center Head at Carrier Technology India Private Limited. Welcome, Mr. Prakash.
Very nice. Thanks a lot, Harshita.
Yeah. So next we have Mr. Richard. He is Technical Director Asia Pacific Tenable. Welcome, Mr. Richard. Yeah. So I said that Mr. Atanu will be moderating this session. So over to you, Mr. Atanu.
Thank you, Harshita, and welcome everyone to this session, inflection point of accelerating ICS vulnerabilities. Glad to have you all in the stage for this discussion. Now, let me start with ICS because many of our listeners might not be aware of what is ICS and might only think that ICS means SCADA, whereas ICS includes a lot other things like PLCs, distributed control systems, or even display units or HMIs and many other server systems. Now, these systems at past was existing in silos, most of the time without any computing power or communication technologies. But thanks to IoT, these all devices are now getting connected, though it is bringing in a lot of opportunities and a lot of new technologies like analytics, AI enabled technologies for detecting any uptime or downtime of the systems. But this is also, creating a havoc in terms of cybersecurity. And I would say it has opened a Pandora's box when it comes to cybersecurity. We have seen at past, last couple of years, ICS vulnerability has really gone up and multifolded itself. Uh, and I do believe current pandemic is also adding to it. So with this, my question would be to Prakash. Prakash, what do you see a global trend in terms of ICS security attacks? Do you think the current pandemic situation has added to it? And another question would be, what is the trend that you see in India?
Perfect. A fantastic question, Atanu. So, thanks for inviting me onto this stage. I'm Prakash. On this stage, I wanted to make it clear that I'm not representing Carrier. So, this is my personal views and opinions. I just wanted to make it clear. But Atanu, you're absolutely right. But before even I answered that particular question, I just wanted to give a little background because you did talk about what is industrial controls. Just a background. Most of these systems have been designed on an average 20, 30 years ago, right? These are not like systems that just got created, designed, developed, manufactured like 6 months ago. And the systems, one of the inherent things that when the systems actually got designed was people had by default assumed that there is going to be a physical security that is going to be around to safeguard the control systems takes your industrials or water plant or energy plant, whatever that might be, right? So it was a component within the overall security. It's not just the cyber security, the physical security actually was a major portion of securing the overall perimeter. But what has actually happened is the COVID has only accelerated with the people working remotely because of the pandemic. and not just remotely, that is just working from home, but some of the employees or the people who take care of the plants could be in a different country as well. And this has actually kind of jeopardized the basic premise on which the security in itself was built. So that's one. The second thing is, because these most of the systems are actually 20, 30 years old, maybe they have a unsecured protocols, or maybe they have not best utilized the latest of the technologies or built using the right stack. And maybe there is actually the people who designed and developed are no more there. Maybe they might have actually retired, and the newer people who are actually taking care of these systems might not really understand the entire system in totality. What the technologies actually started to transpire is that the cybersecurity, specifically with the ICS, is not or has not started just because of the COVID, right? It has always been there. It has been it has been increasing year over year, from say 1918 to 2019, 19 to 20. But COVID has actually disrupted this entire thing, because most of the places, they did not really assume this kind of a disruption to be happening, and most of the companies and the countries were kind of caught not on their guard. So these were some things that has actually happened. uh, some of the statistics are that about 40% increase in the global threat levels has actually increased
Right.
in the last 6 months or so, or the first 6 months of this year in itself, right? And the trends continue to actually happen.
So is
And
it now fine?
it's the same
It
kind
is
of a
now
thing that's
fine,
also
yes.
happening in India as well. I mean, the
Thank you.
country has reported more than 300% growth in the cybersecurity, specifically addressing the ICS. I mean, we have seen one example of last year in Mumbai, where the energy department got actually hit, right? And these are only going to get accelerated. And there is a lot more things that the people, the malicious elements, are actually taking a look as to why they want to do it. And from our company and the country perspective, we just need to raise our guard in terms of what we need to do to protect ourselves and protect our infrastructure, protect all the plants and everything.
Thanks, Prakash. Very rightly put. And one of the point that you touched upon, that these systems are made 20, 30 years back, and those systems are being connected today. Now, one
Correct.
of the I would call it an issue in ICS world is, unlike IT world where the technology changing in every 2, 3 years, in the ICS world the technology doesn't change too often. 10 years, 20 years are very common in OT world, where you have the same system working for decades, right? And those systems were never meant for security. And if I also see in any organization, the ICS security responsibility is with IT organization. Now, to me, there is a little fundamental gap here. The IT works on a policy of confidentiality and integrity, whereas the whole and sole focus of OT guys are on availability. They can't afford a downtime. And IT guys would like to come to your premise, make the system down, upgrade whatever they need, and there comes the gap. Um, so keeping that in mind, my next question would be to Sabna. What do you think are the biggest challenges when it comes to ICS security to any organization?
Absolutely, that's a good question because in order to solve a problem, first we need to understand what are the challenges. Right? From there, we need to start. So before I answer to your question, thanks a lot, the CSCI, to invite me to this panel discussion. And disclaimer: whatever I'm expressing here, it's my personal views, nothing to reflect with my organization. Coming back to your question, Atanu, yes, definitely, because you said it correctly. Each organization, each type of organization has a particular element from CIA to look for, right? For financial sectors, the confidentiality, which comes the first priority, right? When it comes to IoT or it comes to industrial control systems, which are operating manufacturing organizations, for them, availability is prime most importance because they cannot afford a downtime, right? It costs a lot of money, right? So that if that is the biggest challenge because every time availability has to be ensured. With that, that means we do have a lot of challenge when we do a vulnerability assessment, a vulnerability management. So that's what I'm gonna cover. So instead of becoming a reactive mode, right? Incident happens, we go here, okay, containment, and we fix it, patch it. That should not be the way because we cannot afford it. So what should be the way? It should be a proactive way, right? Even when we talk about proactive, what is a proactive way we do? Vulnerability management, vulnerability assessment, assess the system, do a risk assessment, right? Understand the risk. But we do have a lot of challenge here when it comes to ICS. Why? Because if you take most of the ICS, all the manufacturing organizations or in the critical infrastructure industry, they don't have a updated asset inventory, right? They don't know where exactly what system is running, what OS is being running, and what is the libraries being used. We don't know. With that, the recent hot topic Log4j, right? It's creating a sleepless nights for everyone. So such organizations which is not prepared with their asset inventory, for them it is very difficult to go and understand, okay, which system is being affected because of the 0-day exploit. Okay, and yes, these are the systems we need to patch it. Okay, so that is, so the thing has to start from there. Most of the organization does not have an asset inventory properly. Second thing, when it comes to vulnerability assessment, right, we do have a limitations there because we cannot run a full-fledged red teaming activity there, right? And we cannot do a denial of service attack test there. But actually, attackers are doing the real-time DOS attacks there. The thing is, we cannot leverage our vulnerability scanners and test them with their full potential. That means we'll not be getting a full matured report, right? Because we have to control the scanners in such a way that it don't affect our system and bring down the production itself, right? That's a challenge. We cannot really do the testing. And when it comes to, again, the next level, even if we find out the main priority, right, the high priority risk or severity findings in the vulnerability assessment, how do we gonna patch it? For patching, definitely we need a reboot, right? How much, what system to be rebooted, how much time it will take? Again, it's a challenge. Then it comes, then I just want to reiterate what I started with, right? Asset inventory. When we go for a fix or a vulnerability security fix for anything, any component in the system, we cannot go here and there and just do it. Okay, we should need a prioritized list. For that, we need to understand what is the critical component within this our environment, right? Because see, 1 0-day exploit might be very high, severe for the entire world, but it might not be applicable for a particular manufacturing industry because it's not their critical server which is running that, right? So we need to have a asset inventory properly, and it has to flag properly which is critical components, and has to start from there. And the last not the least, as we said, today we are in a world where OT and IT cannot be considered separately. It has to converge. That means earlier we were having a lot of focus on the IT security. Being said that, we do have a lot of skill gap on OT security. There are few people only who really understand the OT security, the protocols, and how it has to be, and this has to be merged together. So I see a huge skill gap in that area. So if we can address these challenges, definitely we can have this 40 percentage bring down to 20 or 10 percentage. Yeah.
Sure, but I think Sabna very nicely put, and I do agree. The first challenge is knowing what you want to protect, and I do agree with you that most cases I see a plant person doesn't know the complete asset inventory that they have. Absolutely true. Um Also, lack of knowledge in the areas of OT security, that's a gap. I also, do see that even though there are certain standards that are existing, you talk about NIST or IC 62443, there are not much regulatory bodies who are enforcing it. Like In North America, if you see for the utility segment, there is NERC, who people do think NERC as a standard, which is not. NERC is a regulatory body which is asking all the utility companies to be cyber secure. That is something probably lagging, and that is also somewhere probably, you know, causing a lack of motivation for the manufacturing segment to proactively protect their OT layer. Prakash, what do you think? Do you see the similar challenges? Lack of motivation.
I think it is multifold, I would think, Atanu, right? A lack of motivation probably might be a little overstatement. I think lack of taking the seriousness. People might have not really understood the repercussions or understood the magnitude of the problem that they were sitting on. And once it is exposed, that's where the governments and the countries started to realize how vulnerable their systems, including the plants, are there that can actually shut down. I mean, the last year's the gas line in the East Coast, the colonial pipeline, where it has actually brought, I don't know, like 35-40% of the overall gas supply, right? For almost 1 week. People might have not understood. I think the intent is that we need to now seriously see what is actually happening in the other places where they have become vulnerable. And the countries or the companies should start investing in these areas more proactively, more seriously. Budget needs to be allocated, dedicated people needs to be allocated to what Sabana was talking about. The right talent needs to be hired, because the skill set to manage the cybersecurity of the OT kind of an environment is different from the IT kind of an environment. Of course, these two are converging from a technology perspective, but the way I have to secure is totally different, right? I think these are the things that needs to be highlighted, and the forums like this are extremely important because people will then get to be aware as to what's happening and what they need to be doing, right? And all it requires is, just like that old saying, right? All it requires is a one bad apple in a cart. All it requires is for a company just one incident to take a major hit, right? From the
Absolutely.
investors, everything.
Absolutely, Prakash. I mean, you got a very good point of implication. So, while we discuss in this line, my question to Richard would be, what do you think are the implications of an cyber attack in the OT layer for a company? We know there will be monetary losses, but that's not all. To your view, when a cyber attack happens in the OT layer, uh, what are the implications, Richard?
The implications are very grave. First of all, I want to mention one thing. It was stated that in operational technology, the primary KPI is availability. I actually expand that a little bit. And for the record, I agree with, I think Sabna is a secret Tenable employee because everything she said matches our philosophy almost precisely. But I'm going to add a couple of things. The number one priority is safety. And every time I go to any facility, which is quite frequent, they always have this sign. I'm a frequent visitor to one of the Singapore utilities, and they have this big sign with a digital number on it that says the number of days since they last had an accident. And in this case, this particular facility is 1,900 days. Now, that's very impressive. And you can imagine that the big boss of that plant gets a nice juicy bonus. So you don't want to be the guy to reset that back to 1, But anyway, I think the ramifications are, number one, any type of cyber attack against critical infrastructure has a significant possibility of hurting a person or causing grave environmental damage. All right. Now, you mentioned the financial loss already, but the second thing that is significant is the reputational loss against an organization. So if I am a utility and I have a cyber attack and I make Mumbai go black for a day, my reputation is going to be sullied for quite a while. And a classic example of that, you mentioned yourself 15 minutes ago, Colonial Pipeline. Their reputation is sullied, and they're going to be used as an example for years. Okay, again, you don't want to be that person. So in addition to the financial impact, there's the safety impact, life, limb, and property, possible environmental damage, and the significant reputational impact that poor cybersecurity has when a breach does indeed occur. Okay, the other example everyone keeps remembering all the time, Saudi Aramco a few years ago. And my personal favorite is the Ukrainian power grid attack of 2015 and 2016. Classic examples. So I think those are domains that you need to be very concerned about, and I think provide sufficient justification for additional investment in cybersecurity and OT. And if I could have one more second, okay, then I'll get off my soapbox. I think justifying investments in cybersecurity for OT should be it shouldn't be that hard, because the financial implications of an outage that even lasts an hour, if I'm talking $50,000, $100,000 for a proper cybersecurity system in my OT environment, that 1 hour outage is going to be way, 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 way more than that small investment. To be honest with you, the cost of the cybersecurity solution is really peanuts when compared to what the damage would be.
Absolutely, absolutely, Richard. I think can't agree with you more. Monetary damage you may probably able to control, but the reputation damage that happens, and like we are taking examples, that remains in people mind forever. And depending on the manufacturing segment, it could be more harmful to a company. You know, like a food and beverage company being attacked and something being compromised, they will see much more implications than probably what other industries may see.
Mm-hmm.
When I say that, we also see that many of these manufacturing segment are trying to figure out uh, how do they find out their current security posture. They take consultant support to figure out where the gaps are. They get a report of where the gaps are. Now, I also do believe that there are a lot of challenges when they know there are gaps and how to mitigate. Some of the report may say that you have a critical line which is very vulnerable, and the assessment might say that you create a separate DMZ for the critical line. It may not be so easy for an manufacturing segment to overnight create a separate DMZ and create a new production line. So likewise, there might be many challenges in implementing the good practices as well. So my question to Sabna would be, what do you think are the challenges in implementing solutions to a problem that's being discovered in the OT layer?
Absolutely. So first and foremost challenge, I think Richard already covered that, to get the leadership buy-in, right? Because I mean, unlike the IT sector, OT sector was not being hacked or attacked regularly. So there are organizations which have the same leadership going on for years, and they are very confident about the system, because that were the age when we had an air gap. That means OT-IT convergence was not there. It was physically separated. Okay, now how can we? So without the leadership buy-in, definitely nothing can be done in an organization or in any sector, right? So we have to start with the proper risk assessment, right? Should bring in a team who can really explain. Okay, this is a critical infrastructure, as you rightly said, Atanu, right? Okay, this particular vulnerability might not be affecting the system. So the how we present it to the team, the leadership team, right? Identifying the right risk at the right level with the impact. Okay, this is gonna be impact, and we can point out the example. Okay, this is gonna be the impact, and this is what the example which we have in the history. So getting the right leadership buy-in, which is very, very important. For that, we need to start with the right risk assessment, a proper engagement with the external consultancy or within the team. If we can build in, we have to start from there. Then the solution is definitely, as we said, we cannot neglect the part of availability, right? How we can, we have to ensure the availability. What I see here today is, yes, we do have vulnerability assessment, the patching, all those things. How prepared we are for a security incident? What is the security incident response plan we have? Okay, and with the increased ransomware attack, which is mainly focusing on these kind of sectors today, right? Are we having the right IT resilience? That means IT disaster recovery. So that's a huge question, right? Because to have a sister site or sister standby site to be available, to bring up the availability, to make sure the availability is a huge question. It's a huge investment, but it is very critical. What I see with the increased ransomware attack, IT resilience, IT disaster recovery, very critical in ICS sector, right? And definitely, the other solution is we should bring in OT and IT security together. That means they have to. That should not be a separate team. Okay, OT security team and IT security team. Even the incident response plan has to be built together by these two teams. The key people from the IT security, OT security has to be there in the incident response plan, right? And then definitely what we have to do is the risk assessment. As I already said, risk assessment is where we have to start, then eventually move and mature and to have a proper security monitoring and response plan. So that's a big main solution we can go for.
Thanks, Abna. Very well said. I would also, like to check with Richard. You being a technology provider for OT security, do you see challenges in adopting those technologies once companies knows I am vulnerable in these areas? These are the things we need to do. What's your perspective here, Richard?
Okay, that's a very good question. And I think the biggest perspective is a lack of mutual understanding between IT and OT. IT people would tend to believe that the OT environment is the same as the IT environment. And OT people don't even want the IT people to set foot in their plant because they're afraid that they're going to touch something and break it. And I can't blame the OT people for that position because this factory has been working perfectly fine for the past 20 years. Why should I let you touch it? Because you're going to break my KPI. So I think the biggest problem of all is that IT people need to understand and respect that things are in OT, things are as they are for a very, very good reason. There's different ways of measuring success in OT, and the operators are responsible for maintaining a somewhat different KPI. We said it at the beginning. I think Savannah also said this. Confidentiality, integrity, and availability are the mantra of IT. Data is the product. In OT, data is only a means to accomplish the objective of production. The product is the product. So there's a difference in how things are treated. IT people need to embrace that, okay? The second thing that's equally important, and I can comment on this from my own personal experience, is the cybersecurity knowledge in operational technology is almost non-existent. I'll say this with a straight face. I feel that OT security is where IT security was in 1993. And I don't hear anybody disagreeing with me on that. So OT people, number one, need to be educated about the fact that embracing IT security practices will help them to improve their KPI of safety, availability, and quality. And number two, they're going to have to accept the fact that some stuff is going to have to change in their operational environments in order to ensure that there's security. So to summarize it, it's a lack of mutual understanding and the fact that each side of the equation needs to educate themselves about the requirements of the other side. And if you do that, you're going to have a harmonious implementation of security in the operation technology world. The second thing that I'll stress is very important. I think, again, this was also stated earlier, 100% this needs C-level buy-in and C-level drive, because otherwise the IT or OT side of the house is not going to have the motivation to do what I just suggested. But if the C-level is making them do it, it will happen. So that's exceptionally important to have success. Okay.
Yep, Richard, I think what you said are a few of my favorite lines, which I keep talking when I talk to manufacturing guys. Absolutely agree on that. And I see Neha has joined as well. Neha, thanks for joining and good to have you here. So while we stay on this topic of challenges of mitigating the gaps, Prakash, what do you think are the best practices and strategies manufacturing industry should adopt to proactively safeguard themselves from the cyber attacks?
I mean, in no specific order, I just wanted to talk about a few best practices I would think, Atanu. Uh, Richard was also talking about the tight integration between the IT and the OT. And this is something, this is like a trend that is actually happening, like a major mega trend that's happening that we will not be in a position to stop it. And the more these two circles are intersecting, the more, gray areas that will be there. So the most important thing for the companies is that they need to really take a look into their overall assets, assets not just from like a laptops, but assets from the hardware, the PLCs or the SCADA equipments or the softwares, everything that becomes part of that OT, and then take a look into the overall vulnerabilities in terms of how vulnerable each of those systems, and how likely it is going to happen, and if it happens, what would be the impact to the business. And you can actually determine based on the company that you work for, you can determine based on the revenue or the shareholders loss, reputation, income, margins. I mean, you could decide what it might be, and you would be in a position to classify not like exactly like $153 point, 6 7 cents, but you will say that it's a very high, critical, medium, low sort of thing. Once you have this stack ranking, then you would be in a position to then find out where do you need to invest your dollars, money, people, resources, energy to fix it. So that's one way. And if you have to talk about on a technology front, what are the best practices that we should be in a position to do? Take a look into the application whitelisting. Take a look into the multi-factor authentication. Take a look into the principle of least privileges, right? Take a look into providing to make sure that we have a proper patch and a configuration management always available, deployable at a wink of the eye. Make sure that we have a proper ongoing rhythm, integration, communication happening between the IT and the OT teams, because sometimes these two teams could be sitting separately. Make sure that you need to attack this problem in two sectors. One, equipment that's already there in the OT for the last 10 20 years, and one, the systems that you are going to be designing and developing into the future, because these are also going to be vulnerable, right? And these two buckets needs to be attacked a little differently, right? The approach that I have in the first one might not be applicable for the second one. So you need to have this two-pronged approach in terms of my legacy or the existing systems and my current and the future systems, right? And having that entire mapping done, I think is going to be really useful. But one point that I can also really emphasize upon is that most of these systems also generate a huge log files, right? Or if the logging capability is not there, making sure that you enable those logging capabilities. And once you have these systems across the globe, you would not be in a position to go through each line of the log file to understand what's the problem, right? Or where is their anomaly. So using the AI technologies to understand, to quickly go through that entire log files to understand where are the anomalies happening, and alerting the owner, the plant owner, saying that, hey, I see some kind of a discrepancy here, will really help. So the teams needs to really leverage the capabilities, some of the things that the AI can actually bring in, either from the visualization standpoint or crunching the millions and millions of the data that is coming in. I think that is going to be extremely important. So these are all on the technology side, but the best practice, I think, probably on the softer approach, I think are the biggest thing is non-technical. If it is a technical problem, I think to a large extent we know how to fix it. We know what to do, where to do, when to do, sort of thing. I think the bigger challenge is that the stakeholders or the leaders who are actually funding these things, they need to be educated properly in terms of the vulnerabilities, in terms of the cost repercussions, in terms of the brand repercussions, and having that dedicated budget allocated from day one. As a result, it will not be touched. Dedicated people, as a result, they will not be touched. And most importantly, sharing of these best practices across these companies or the countries, to talk openly about in terms of some things that they have actually seen. Not, I mean, they don't need to talk about their entire confidentiality or the private data, but talking about what those companies have actually done, because the sum of the parts is much more than the sum, right? I mean, as a result, each of the companies are learning by themselves, and if we are in a position to get that congregation or an aggregation, I think that would be very, very important. So it's more of a soft skill with the technical skills approach, along with the legacy and the current products. I think those are the things that I would put at Tanu.
No, I think Prakash very rightly said. In fact, what you mentioned about the budget, I also faced question many a time how much budget I should allocate. Does it cost a lot of money? And my answer to it is no. First, figure out where do you stand. Figure out what are the low-hanging fruits. Start addressing those. So I think very well said, Prakash, and I think we are also on the top of the hour. So one last question, and this would be to Neha, you. We are talking about OT, IT, IT/OT convergence a lot. Now, given this situation of IT and OT being converged, and it's a reality right now, what are the key consideration an organization should think about while adopting this modern technology to become cyber secure?
So, I will pick it up from where, one of the previous points which was mentioned, that in the context of situational awareness, where do we stand at present? So, what is your vulnerability landscape on the OT side? What is your heterogeneous, vendor environment? What are the kind of devices you have? Your asset inventorization in terms of, again, having a detailed process around asset commissioning till asset disposal. So, I mean, where do you stand with respect to OT? Situational awareness has to be a key consideration before one goes into the convergence mode. Because having said that, when you increase the connectivity, when you increase the convergence, you increase the exposure manyfold. So as of now, we have seen that historically IT cybersecurity has evolved as a total solution, wherein it was a approach which was an entirety considering a whole architecture kind of approach. Wherein OT has evolved separately. OT is the legacy systems may not be designed to cope up with the cybersecurity requirements. So what I would emphasize is that situational awareness, maybe having your somebody mentioned about the log data analysis and all, having your vulnerabilities known, what is your patch compliance level, having that situational awareness should be an input before you try to get adoption on new technologies and move in that direction. I think that is a very key parameter of having the foundation sorted before you decide on the adoption of new technologies.
Thanks, Neha. And I think I see a very interesting question in the question answer box, and I would go to Richard. The question is, the issue is nothing has happened in the last 20 plus years. So why should we invest in OT security? How will you convince the manufacturing companies to invest in OT security?
Nothing has happened in the past 20 or so years because we haven't been exposed to the level of interconnectivity that we are beginning to get exposed to now. As we're being forced to embrace green initiatives, smart cities, things like that, external entities are beginning to have an influence on, pardon the dog, an influence on critical infrastructures. And that has not been the case over the past, in the past, but it's changing very, very, very rapidly. And in addition to that, attackers are beginning to realize that critical infrastructure, manufacturing facilities, and so on are juicy targets, especially for things like ransomware. That's a relatively new trend. So, yeah, I can say I had the internet before 1994 and things were cool, but then the attackers started to get smart. We're at that so-called, you say it in the title of this session, at that inflection point now where security is going to become a major concern for operational technology, whereas it wasn't in the past. So it's not 20 years ago, my friends, it's 2021, and things are changing very quickly.
Yep, I think very nicely put, and I think it was a great discussion where we really understand that OT is different from IT, and we cannot treat OT and IT in the same way. There are a lot of challenges in the OT areas. OT security risk are reality today. We know that uh, in OT areas, the gaps are kind of we don't know what are the assets, what we are going to protect. We don't know all the gaps that we have. Uh, we have challenges in people, or people ignoring the fact that they can get compromised. Richard, you mentioned about safety. We all talk about safety, and every manufacturing plant have it in display in bold that there was no safety incident. But cybersecurity gets ignored, and it is high time for all of us to educate our manufacturing friends that hey, uh, OT security is a real threat today. You need to be prepared for it. You don't have to think about huge budget being allocating for this. Start small, figure out
Mhm.
where are the gaps, look at how you cut the low hanging fruits and go for the bigger one. And I think, Richard, you mentioned again that compared to the implications that a OT security can cause to an organization, the investment is really nothing. It's very small. So that's the takeaway we get from this session. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Harshita, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Atanu, and thank you all the speakers. It was really nice to hear the views, and we do have some more questions, but due to interest of time, we cannot take those questions. But yeah, audience may reach out to you over the LinkedIn or social media. So yeah, thank you,
Absolutely.
everyone. Thank you,
Thank
audience, for
you.
joining in this session.
Thank you for the
Thank
opportunity.
you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Nice
Thank
meeting
you.
you all.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you,
Bye.
everyone.
Nice
Bye.
being here. Thanks, everyone. Bye bye.